Well, one of the places where spring is really starting to show up is in our rock garden. And right now the crocus and the daffodils are blooming and putting on a show. Now, we've got our bulbs planted in a prime spot here in the rock garden because they have such good drainage. And that is one of the very important things to think about when planting bulbs. Well, we've also got some bulbs planted in here that even though they're not blooming, they are really very interesting because of the foliage. And right here we have some allium that we've planted, and these are allium siculum. And you'll notice how the foliage here twists around, and it's actually got kind of 3 flanges here, and then these twists, which makes it very interesting even though these aren't blooming yet. Well, another one of the bulbs that we've planted that has some interesting foliage is one of the species tulips, and that is Tulipa clusiana peppermint sticks. Now, it has kind of a wavy edged foliage with a little strip of red along the edge. And so we're interested to see this when it's blooming with this foliage because the foliage is so interesting. Now, you'll remember that the species tulips are tulips that we think are going to perennialize better in Oklahoma. And so we'll be anxious to see these fill in this area. Now, one of the plants that we really are pleased with this spring is this euphorbia. This is Euphorbia myrcinoides, and we planted this last summer in the rock garden. We started from seed. It was some seed that we got from Parks Catalog, and it had this really nice blue foliage all summer long. But what is really impressive right now is this yellow bloom that it's putting out. It is absolutely covered with this bloom, and you can see this from a long ways off, just sticking out here in the rock garden. Now, this plant likes the heat and it likes dry spots, and as you can see, it's pretty well adapted to our Oklahoma location, so we are very excited about this plant. Well, some of the other things that are doing very well right now are the moss phlox. Now, they have a wonderful bloom earlier in the spring right now, and then after that you have the nice green foliage. Now, if you want to have something that's interesting all year long, then you might try the variegated moss phlox, which is blooming very pretty right now, but it also has that variegated foliage, so it's interesting even when it's not blooming. And one of the other plants that's just getting ready to bloom right now is the candy tuft. And here you can see it's just starting to bloom, and it looks a lot like alyssum. Now, the nice thing about it is it's a perennial, and it's planted in the sun here, kind of in a sheltered spot, but it also grows very well in semi-shade to shady areas. So it could be one of the plants that you might think about planting under those trees where the grass won't grow. Now, this has kind of a compact growth habit to it, and what we'll want to do if we want to keep that compact is to shear this right after it gets done blooming. Now, this is also true for the moss phlox and for the euphorbia. As soon as they're done blooming, we can shear them off, and then that will help keep them compact. Well, some of the other plants that are looking really spectacular right now are some of the fruit trees, but you don't necessarily think about putting a fruit tree very close to the house. However, there are a lot of dwarf varieties, even patio varieties, that have been developed. Greenleaf Nursery has donated 2 varieties to us that I'd like to show off right now, and one of those is a dwarf patio peach. It's called Bonfire, and it has absolutely spectacular blooms right now. You can see them just packed on the branches. It's also going to have a purple leaf, and at its mature height it'll reach 3 to maybe 6 feet tall, so it's nice and compact. While it does have the purple leaf and the bloom, the peach is not exactly the best fruit to eat. However, if you want a fruit on your patio to eat, you might try the leprechaun patio nectarine. Now, it has nice bloom right now, and it has a green shiny leaf on it, and the nectarines are very good to eat. So these are some fruit varieties that you could actually grow on your patio. Well, a lot of the flowering shrubs are flowering right now, and 2 of the earliest were the winter jasmine and the forsythia, which are just about done blooming now. Now, these are 2 shrubs that look very nice if you let them go with their long arching stems instead of pruning them in kind of a ball shape. But one thing you have to take into consideration when you're planting these is to give them enough space to spread out. Now, forsythia can get to be 6 feet tall and can spread as large as maybe 9 or 10 feet around, and so you can see that it takes up a lot of room. So take this into consideration if you're going to plant them, that you'll give them enough space. However, they do have varieties now that are dwarfing. So if you have a smaller area and you would like a forsythia, try planting one of the dwarfing varieties there so you won't have the pruning problem. Other plants that look great right now are the flowering quince, and also many of the spireas are blooming now. And the azaleas and the rhododendrons are just getting ready to start flowering. Now, the one thing that you do want to remember is if you need to prune these shrubs, prune them just as soon as they get done flowering. So like the winter jasmine, you'd be pruning it right now. And that way you won't be pruning off next year's bloom if you take care of that right after they bloom.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.